This is the Palin Update on SarahNet Radio. I'm Kevin Scholla.
The Tea Party movement is not a top-down operation. It's a ground-up call to action that is forcing both parties to change the way that they're doing business, and that's beautiful.
Sarah Palin hammered away this past week at the IRS about the outrageous behavior and scandal that has rocked the nation. Today, we're joined by Toby Marie Walker, the president of the Waco Tea Party. Her group applied for a 501c4 status in July of 2010, but when she called the IRS to check on the progress, well, she was given the old "don't call us, we'll call you" line. Almost 2 years later, the IRS finally made contact, asking questions that went well beyond the agency's authority, according to Walker. Find out today what the Waco Tea Party is doing about this. It's time for Eric Holder to go. Governor Palin reaches out to Oklahoma victims, commends a rare stand-up journalist, and highlights a unique fishing tournament in Alaska. Plus a Palin comment on the weather that heated up the tempers of many Al Gore greenies. Just ahead, our latest edition of Steel Resolve with Sarah Steelman. First, we head to Texas and say hello to the president of the Waco Tea Party, Toby Marie Walker. Welcome to the Palin Update on SarahNet Radio. How are you?
I'm great. How are you?
Doing well. Thanks so much for being here.
Oh, well, it's a pleasure.
Now, the Waco Tea Party, before we get into the situation going on with you and the IRS, tell everybody a little bit about your group first.
Well, the Waco Tea Party is a grassroots organization that is all about getting people more informed, involved, and active in the political process. We want people to vote. We want people to, attend their city council meetings, school board meetings, county commissioner, pay attention to what's going on in a state level, and then, of course, the federal. But our main focus is our own backyards.
And you were Tea Party before Tea Party was cool, right? Right out there in 2009. I remember also taking my daughter on the East Coast to an event, early before people knew, what is this Tea Party stuff? And, she took her picture in her stroller with a Lipton tea bag box. So, you were there early, and so you really have a good understanding of the issues and what's going on more than most.
Yeah, we formed in February of 2009, very early. We were an early adopter. And we have been around since then with the same continuity, consistency of leadership, volunteers. I've probably been one of the few organizations that have been that way. But we've had a blast doing it until recently. It wasn't so much of a blast. But even then, we've got a great set of volunteers, and I would challenge anybody to top our team. We love them.
Now, when it comes to scandals in the Obama administration, I could reach into a hat here and we could talk about, well, a lot of things. But with you, we have a specific one to go after, and that's the IRS deal. The IRS targeting not only Tea Party groups, but Christian groups, pro-life groups, all different sorts of groups that have to do with things like conservatism or liberty or freedom, or in your case, the words Tea Party. Tell us what happened here. I mean, some people still can't believe this, that the Internal Revenue Service is not only harassing, but going after groups that are not of the ilk of the current administration. Tell us specifically what happened with your group.
Well, our group, when we looked at the different tax entities that we could be, because in America, you hear this a lot. Well, why did you need tax-exempt status? Well, you have to have some kind of a tax status to speak out publicly about politics, and I don't think people realize that. There's no such thing as free speech. If you pay taxes on your free speech, then you're limited of what you can say. So what fit us the most was a 501c4. So we applied for that in July of 2010, sent in our little payment, which for us was a big payment, and our application. We did not hear from them for months and months and months, other than, hey, we got your money, we'll be in touch. Then we started calling them and begging the question, what could we expect next? And it was basically, don't call us, we'll call you. Then in February of 2012, 19 months later, 19 months, we received a demand letter from the IRS asking us a number of questions that we felt were outside the bounds of the 1024 application to become a C4. We immediately contacted our congressman, and talked to other Tea Party groups, 912 groups, and other conservative groups, heard all their horror stories. The ACLJ reached out to us. They became our attorneys. We fought for another year with the back and forth with the IRS, and then we were finally granted status, coincidentally enough, recently. And now we see this, and then the IRS, says, oh, by the way, we're sorry about that. And we're embroiled into the scandal.
Yeah, I did nothing wrong, but now I plead the fifth. Let me ask you this. What were some of the weird things they were asking? They're looking for transcripts, social media postings. You name it, they wanted it, right?
It was enough to choke a horse. Everything had to be hard copy. And they wanted all of our social media sites, Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, et cetera, they wanted transcripts from all of our radio shows, because we have a radio show here locally, all of the radio shows where a candidate was on air. And so when we asked the IRS, well, what's a candidate? Because if it's an incumbent, they're running for office again, but if they're talking to us as an elected official, does that describe candidate? Well, that's subjective. Just send it to us. Well, just even those transcripts would have cost us, thousands and thousands of dollars, and would have been 20 boxes of paperwork. Then they wanted the relationships that we had with any candidate, close personal relationship with any candidate or party official. Well, we know, like for example, my state representative, Charles Doc Anderson, is also my dog's vet. So is that considered a close personal relationship? The IRS told us, well, it's subjective, so send us a list of everybody you know, what the relationship is, and who they have, who on your board. They wanted to know our members. They wanted to have, just things they're not allowed to ask. They wanted information about people that we invited to speak, why we they were invited to speak, their bios, et cetera, et cetera. We at that point we just said we need counsel, and we got a hold of, like I said, the ACLJ, and they stepped in for us.
Yeah, the large scale of this is amazing because clearly they knew what they were doing, and you would think it could not be coincidental to just go after these types of groups. But even if you did do this, you would think they'd be smart enough to not do it on such a large scale. It's like asking for a warranty, a mail-in warranty in the stores. Why don't they just give you the money then? Well, because half the people forget or they don't mail it in. Same thing here. You figure after a while a group like yours that was, astute enough to say, hey, enough's enough, and go after them and call them out on this. So what's next for the Waco Tea Party? What are you going to do here for the IRS situation?
Well, we've got a number of options. We have a number of avenues, and we're exploring all of them.
I mean, is a lawsuit something we're looking at?
Yes. We are talking to counsel about lawsuits, but I will refer everybody back, with our attorneys. Now that we're talking to attorneys, you know that story.
Sure,
we have to refer back to them.
I will say this, though, in general.
I'd rather not comment on lawsuits.
Absolutely. No, I understand, Toby. But, just in general, though, it's funny, isn't it? When we talk about Tea Party groups and people who follow the Constitution, the last thing we want is frivolous lawsuits. The last thing we need are more lawsuits. But, the last thing we also need is race baiting and some of the other games that are played against us, and sometimes it's time to fight back with what you're being hit with, and sometimes that is the only recourse. So I think that people would completely understand if you do go a legal route here. Mark Levin and others, they were talking about this a while ago, and of course we're painted as crazy and conspiracy and all this, and Sarah Palin pointed out, when this finally broke and you actually had an apology and you actually had IRS officials talking about this, that Levin and others like yourself were right all along.
Well, and that, I think that the most egregious thing to me is that this is the United States government. It's not just the IRS. This is the United States government with an arm of it, being the IRS, that seems to have targeted conservative Tea Party 912 groups because of their political beliefs. And that is the most alarming to me, because if they can do that to us, what are they going to do to others?
I think another scary thing here is we're to the point now, I mean, really, when this broke the first time, I mean, when we first heard about it, or when some of the media started to finally show it, you are shocked, I would say, but sadly not surprised with what we've seen out of this administration. That's the scariest part of all, that we almost expect things like this. Look at all the things that are happening right now.
Well, even I was, I'll be honest, I mean, you understand bickering back and forth between philosophical or political ideas. But to see some of the things that have been mentioned in the hearings, in the congressional hearings, Ways and Means, Oversight, and then on the Senate side with the Senate Finance, some of the things that they have said, it is a little shocking, because you don't expect your government to target its own citizens for their beliefs when we have things like the First Amendment. So to me, it was a little shocking, or maybe just a little disillusioned. I was very I'm still kind of stunned that, one, they would admit to it, and two, that they would do it.
Yeah, well, you know, these amendments, they work for when they work for them, right? I mean, you see with the attack they've had on our Second Amendment, but now with Lois Lerner and others, well, the First Amendment's just great when I can use it to, you know, stay out of heat. There's so many examples. I mean, we talked to you and the Waco Tea Party here because, you know, you seem to be doing something about it and very proactive. But, I mean, the examples of these IRS situation go on and on and on. But Governor Palin pointed one out the other day, a pro-life group. They were actually asked by the IRS, what is it that you pray for? And I mean, if you can't, I mean,
that's not just, it's not just absurd, but who in their right mind asks these kind of questions? I don't understand. And when I don't have words for it. I'm sorry. It just leaves me speechless.
Here's what concerns me more than anything moving forward, because eventually, hopefully, there's light at the end of the tunnel to get rid of some of these people in Washington. But when you see this type of harassment and you see this type of people being, you know, everyday Americans who are, you know, by nature of Tea Party, your regular citizens who have jobs and families, you know, you talked about your dog and your vet, you know, you're going through regular situations, but are out there fighting for the country that you love. Is this going to discourage even more people? We already have people who don't run for office because they're so scared of the media and the lying and the mudslinging. What about this now? Is someone going to say, you know, I'd like to get active, but I don't need the IRS digging around on me. I don't need Washington in my backyard. That's what worries me. And I think in that way, they could be found guilty on all of this, but still have some sort of a victory to knock some groups down.
I think that it has a very chilling effect on political involvement, which I think is the most egregious part of all of this. And, you know, I've seen some of the reports where the left says, well, you know, people should be targeted for their beliefs. Would they believe that under George Bush? And be careful what you wish for. I would hope that no one in America would want any administration, any branch of the government, or any group to target people in this way over their political beliefs, their religious beliefs. I've seen the news reports where, you know, adoptive families and college students have been targeted. That is so beyond the pale. That is so un-American, and I don't throw that word out there loosely, because I believe that, you know, everyone's entitled to their beliefs in America, and that's what makes us great. It's when you suppress those beliefs or punish them or target them that it becomes un-American.
Yeah, you know, Nancy French, who wrote Bristol Palin's book along with Bristol Palin, pointed that out the other day. She's an adoptive parent. And, you know, Michelle Bachmann, of course, known for that. So that's what it is. You know, you'd think something so wonderful, no matter who's doing it, to adopt a child would be left alone. But because, you know, you see a lot of conservatives do it. That's the thing. They don't even care about the actual action or what you're doing. They just find if a Tea Party group or a conservative group or anyone with ties to something that is truly American does that, well, we'll target that act too, even if it's, you know, undisputably a wonderful act.
I think that it's targeting family values. most people in the Tea Party movement, 9/12 movement, they do have family values. And it seems to me, and I may be wrong, but it seems to me that that's what really was targeted. People of faith, people who believed in family, people who believed in country, the Constitution, the American dream, yes, that they were targeted. And that is very frightening to me, because what does that say as a whole, and why were they doing it, especially when it's across all these different lines. And it's very sad that so many Americans yet today still don't understand what this is all about or even know about it. So it's good that we have, the media paying attention, radio paying attention. And one thing I'll ask listeners, we tend to preach to choirs. Talk outside of your normal comfort level. Talk to the people you go to church with. Talk to the people you work with. Talk to your neighbors. Make sure that people know about this, because the more people know about it, whether you agree with the Tea Parties or conservatives or not, this will affect you, because we all file taxes.
That's very well said. Governor Palin mentioned that in some ways recently, too, about infiltrating pop culture and sports and, other avenues of music that sometimes conservatives say, well, a lot of liberals there, I'm just going to stay away. I like what you're saying there. You got to talk to everybody here. It makes a lot of sense. Toby Marie, thank you so much. And, good luck with the Waco Tea Party and everything you're doing. And we're going to keep tabs on this, and hopefully things work out well here.
Well, thank you very much. And, if you know a Tea Party in your area, please go get involved and donate. Help them out.
Absolutely. Thanks again.
Thank you.
For more on Toby Marie Walker and the Waco Tea Party, visit wacoteaparty.org. Sarah Palin was all over the IRS mess this past week. First, like all of us, expressing dismay at IRS official Lois Lerner's cowardly move to take the Fifth. Governor Palin saying IRS to plead the Fifth to avoid embarrassment or burden, but no worries about citizens' embarrassment or burden while targeted. Palin then took to long-form writing and penning, going rogue in the wrong direction. Here the governor highlights the White House's involvement in the IRS scandal. Enough is enough, says Palin. We agree, Governor. This is a must-read. Later in the week, Palin took to Twitter once again for some creative yet very thought-provoking tweets. Sequester equals a 4-day weekend at the IRS, Palin tweeted. Few more for you. The IRS is closed for the day. Feel free to use your phones. Hashtag Obama scandal movies, all quiet on the West Wing front. And refuses to resign, then fire Lerner. $170K annually equals White House open to tours this summer. Hashtag sequester solutions. Governor Palin can convey a message in essay form or in 140 characters or less. More common sense coming from Alaska. Sarah Palin asked this simple question this past week. Where is the apology and resignation of your Attorney General, Mr. President? Then Palin posted a letter from Roger Ailes to Fox employees about the chilling news of the FBI's seizure of the phone and email records of Fox News employees, including reporter James Rosen. Ailes encouraged employees, saying, "We will not waver, and we are reporting what is true and what is right. We stand proud and fearless." After the tragic tornado in the Sooner State, Sarah Palin offered her condolences, saying, "With a broken heart, America reaches out to the brave souls of Moore, Oklahoma. Our prayers for strength are with all of you." Palin recognized a rare breed, saying, "There's something different, certainly refreshing about Jake Tapper. I call it integrity and professionalism. What would you call his conscientious approach to news coverage?" Then Palin highlighted an article from Kate O'Hare with specific examples of Tapper's integrity. Not always the case in today's media. This past week, Palin posted some comics on her Facebook page depicting the follies of the Obama administration. And she also featured the Armed Services WMCA Alaska Combat Fishing Tournament in Seward, Alaska. Todd Palin and J.W. Cortez took place in the event. You may remember Cortez. He was Todd's operative on the show Stars Earn Stripes. And yes, we are barreling toward June, but there's still some snow in Alaska. Governor Palin posted a nice picture of Piper in the snow. And among other things, she wrote, "Global warming, my gluteus maximus." You can imagine how the environmentalists love that one. She also congratulated all of the new grads across the country. To read any of Governor Palin's posts in their entirety, head to Sarah Palin's Facebook page, and you can also follow the governor on Twitter at Sarah Palin USA. Now, our weekly commentary, Steel Resolve. Here's Sarah Steelman.
Thanks, Kevin. Proverbs tells us that pride goes before destruction and a haughty spirit before a fall. Perhaps President Obama should think on that. In these past few weeks, Obama's administration, plagued by abuse of power scandals, has been a prime example of nothing but arrogance. But it's no surprise that people in his administration act like that because they are simply following their leader, the president himself. President Obama refuses to take responsibility for Benghazi, for the IRS scandal, or for an out-of-control Justice Department. He refuses to admit that Obamacare was a very bad idea and try to fix it. Instead, he blames others, parses his words, and tries to deflect to other issues. He won't sit down and talk to the American people about anything. Just talk like he was sitting in your living room, explaining how some things just didn't work out right. He is arrogant, and so are those in his administration. There's a scene in Remember the Titans when Bertier, the captain of the team, is trying to get Julius to do his job on the football team. They have an exchange between them about blocking for each other, and Bertier, the captain of the team, says to Julius, "See, man, that's the worst attitude I've ever heard." Julius responds, "Attitude reflects leadership, Captain." Isn't that the truth? The arrogance of this administration reflects the president's attitude. This is Sarah Steelman for Sarah Net Radio.
Tune in again next week for another segment of Steel Resolve right here on the Palin Update. And don't forget, the Palin Update, including Steel Resolve, is now on demand and available for download. So just head to SarahNetRadio.net, pick the show you want to hear, and you can listen anywhere, anytime. Well, that'll just about do it for this edition of the Palin Update on SarahNet Radio. Visit SarahNetRadio.net for continuing coverage of Governor Palin. Also follow along on Twitter at SarahNet Radio, at Kevin Scholla, and at Sarah_Steelman. We're on Facebook, so like SarahNet Radio and like Kevin Scholla. Palin Patriots, our new feature on SarahNet.net. Check out the writings from our great panel of contributors, including Martha Zoller. A couple of real good new ones from Zoller this past week. And I'm doing some writing for Breitbart News. Just go to Breitbart.com and search Kevin Scholla. I want to thank Sarah Steelman and everyone here at SarahNet Radio. Thanks to Toby Marie Walker. And thank you for listening today. Please be sure to join us again next time for another edition of the Palin Update. I'm Kevin Scholla. Have a pleasant day.